Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are at. And today, October 5th, is a special day for my family. Today is my little one's birthday. This is why I'm wearing pink, because this is the shirt that I brought her home from the hospital from. But exciting days, and so she's excited about this. That's why I want to say happy birthday to my little one today. Hey, also, it's also Cancer Awareness Month, right? And so pink also is for the Cancer Awareness Month. So this month I will be wearing my pink shirt as I do produce these programs. So that's kind of the background behind that. I want to bring producer Brian in the show for a second. So I know this is talking about cancer because of the pink shirt stuff, but what did you do this weekend, Brian? Oh, can't hear you, bud.
I forget I mute myself. Yeah, participated in a Walk for Sjogren's, raising funds for Sjogren's syndrome as part of the Sjogren's Foundation of America. So thank you for letting me mention that.
Yeah, so Brian's wife suffers with Sjogren's, and it's been a it's been a crazy journey for them. And they actually have a podcast as well called Sjogren's Strong, which is Lupe is the host of that show, and it's really great. So if you guys are wanting to get behind an organization other than the ones that are out there that you know of, Sjogren's Strong would be, or Sjogren's Foundation would be one to do so. And how can they find that, Brian?
If you visit sjogrenstrong.com, that's the podcast website. There's tons of links to the foundation, or it's sjogrens.org, and that's spelled SJOGRENS. It's a tough one to spell. It's a tough one to pronounce when you first hear it. Most people have never heard of Sjogren's syndrome. So
absolutely. And so the thing with Sjogren's, it's actually an autoimmune disease that can affect
moisture producing glands in the body. 90% of the patients are female, 10% being male. 4 million Americans have it. The foundation's done great work at reducing the time to diagnosis by half. So they do a lot of great work.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give you a chance to say hi and talk about that, because I think it's another great organization that you can support out there. And that's what we should be doing in this field as well. So let's get the show started. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd DeVoe, and I've been involved responding to emergencies and disasters since 1989. And well, that's a long time ago. And I started my journey in emergency management while I was working at EMS, one of the largest active counties, super busy when I was a kid. Now I work for Titan HST, mass notifications company, and we can talk about that later. But Titan HST is a sponsor of this program, and so welcome to Business Continuity Today. Today we'll learn and learn together. So, as a professor, I love to read, I love to write, I love to look what's going on out there and figure out how to improve myself as a person every day. And this is what we're talking about today, is self-improvement strategies to become a better leader. The ability to self-manage, it's really comes through your emotional intelligence, EQ, if you will. And I think EQ, emotional intelligence, is the most important thing that you can build upon. Now, the difference between EQ and IQ, if you will, right, is IQ is a static number. It's something that you have. You take a test and they tell you what your IQ is. You can't really get better at it. But with emotional intelligence, you can always work on yourself and become better at it. And it really is, at the end of the day, is putting yourself in others' shoes, if you will, empathy, if you will. Right. And, if you think of those leaders that lost their temper, yelled at colleagues, threw things across the room, the typical boss, if you will, in the movies, those people are the ones that have very low EQ. I'm not saying that losing your temper means that you have a low EQ, because everybody has emotions that happen at times, right? Depends on stresses and stuff like this. But when that's the go-to place, if you go from a 1 to a 9 being super temper, it shows that your EQ is realistically low, and it's something that you can work on to prepare yourself for changes and unpleasantcies, right? And so there's many different books out there. One of my favorite ones is by Dr. Paul Stoltz called Grit. It goes into the idea of what grit is. I know that I forget her first name, Pamela Duckworth was her last name. She wrote a book called Grit as well, which is very similar to what you're talking about here. With Grit, the one by Stoltz, it's a score that you can give yourself. If you buy it, you go through it, and you give yourself a score. It really teaches you how to work on yourself as a leader, right? And so realistically, when you're putting yourself in the position of leadership, you have to really deal with everybody's emotions, right? Whether it's your one of your staffers who's having issues at home with family, whatever that be, if it's marital problems or problems with kids, or even just financial issues that they've ran into that unexpectedly, right? They're going to come to work with a certain emotional issues that are going on that they might not want to share with you, right? But that's going to impact their work and it can impact the team. And so being able to be there for them is very important. To be able to recognize these things in your team's members is critical as well, right? Working along with them and being able to let them have space and time as well, right? And that's one of those things, as being a servant leader is critical in understanding your team's EQ and your EQ at the same time. So how do you build upon this, right? How do you build yourself into a better leader? Well, it's self-control, self-discipline is your first step towards that. And you have to explore your triggers and understanding what your triggers are, right? I had a teacher when I was in high school who was a New York Giants fan, huge New York Giants fan. This is back in the 80s, right? When the Giants weren't all that great. And during his time, we knew on Mondays if we were going to have, a pop quiz or not, because if the Giants lost, right, we knew that he was going to be in a bad mood and would give us a pop quiz. So it was almost like a joke, if you will, but it made us watch the New York Giants for sure, which is kind of odd because part of that reason is I've started liking the Giants as well. So, thanks for that. And I'm a Giants fan as well as a Bills fan, but that goes into it is understanding that was his trigger. Now, I don't know if that was really something that he would just do, or the fact that he needed some sort of trigger device to give us a pop quiz, but that's what he used. But my point about that is he understood that. He understood his anger issue, if you will, and he put that thing into something that was positive, I guess, if you will, into quizzes for our students. Now, we didn't think of it as being positive, but it really taught us our stuff. That means we had to know what we had to do to go into that classroom. I always thought that was kind of funny. That's why I like to share that story. But explore those triggers, understand what your triggers are, right? And notice what causes those negative reactions that you have, right? And you can do things by keeping journal of them. I like to do the journal thing. I know producer Brian and I, we talked about this a bit. We both gone down that journaling road together to really work out some of the things that we do, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. Journal stuff right here, like we talk about with our show. Those things like that are important when we put into the journal. But also, if you put down your emotional triggers, what really makes you tick, if you will, and understanding yourself. And then you want to solicit feedback. You can do things like doing a 360 evaluation. Now, mind you, if you do that 360 evaluation, prepare yourself for negativity coming from people, right? Because we sometimes don't see ourselves in a negative light, and others may see things that they think are negative, which you don't think they are. And so you got to go into that open-mindedness, right? There's also positive stuff that comes out of it, but I just want you to, if you decide to do that 360 evaluation, there might be some stuff in there that you don't, that you have to deal with and really learn from it, right? And kind of like digest that and bring it back up and really work on that on yourself, because that's how you grow as a person, right? And then that goes into the idea of resilience. Now, this is one of the reasons why I resilience, to me, the word is losing its kind of normal manner to it because we put it into everything, but it fits here, right? And the resilience portion of it is you're finding the opportunity, you're finding that place to grow when you see that negative feedback, right? When you see that situation is negative, you learn from that and you grow from that, right? And with that definition of resilience, if we use the ecology definition of it, right, where there is the stressors that are put on the organism, and they're flexible enough within that stressors, and then to come out on the other side of it stronger, right? That's the idea of resilience. in the sense of using Taleb's work, you can talk about anti-fragility here, right? And you learn from those negative experiences and you build from that and you rebuild from that and you build better than you were before. And I think that's what we really could do with a 360 evaluation. If somebody gives you something that you thought was, that you didn't realize that bothered them or that type of stuff, and you can build from that and really make yourself better. And that goes into that growth mindset, right? And a great leader has to have a growth mindset. I talk to friends of mine, we talk about the idea of making ourselves the better person. We're always striving to be the best person we could be today, right? And yesterday, that person is no longer really realistically there, right? So, and tomorrow's person is the person that you can actually influence and grow in yourself, right? So, be in the present, be there for yourself, understand what you learned from yesterday, make it better today, so tomorrow you can be that better person as well. So that's the growth mindset. Sounds kind of wooey there, right? As I'm talking about this, I'm like, that sounds like new age talking, but it's not. Not in that sense, right? It's the idea of going, hey, I need to make myself better, and that's how you grow. Same thing with, think about if you're working out and try to grow bigger muscle, right? You always want to give yourself the right proteins and whatnot, and to give yourself better performance the next day. And you want to maintain that perspective, right? If anything has been brought through this pandemic, it's taught us that we sometimes things are outside of our control, right? The ability to work through this pandemic, right? Some people, businesses were closed by the government. Businesses were closed due to the fact that people couldn't come to work because of the lockdowns and shutdowns, right? People lost jobs. Some people got new jobs because of this pandemic. But it's been really interesting to see this go through, right? So the things are outside of our control. So you have to really think about that in perspective. And if it's something you can't control, you have to let it go. You can still learn from it, right? But sometimes the things that are outside of your control, just let those go. So stop wasting time on holding on to those things, right? And really just kind of move forward with it. It kind of goes back into that growth mindset. That yesterday, right? We learned from the problems that happened yesterday, but we don't bring them into tomorrow, right? Integrity. Know your reputation. Reputation and character serve as both models for others, right? And so that kind of goes back to that 360 feedback as well. What do other people think of you? And again, it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, right? So that's the important thing on that. And then be consistent, right? Stick to your values or beliefs and other aspects of your life. Be consistent with those. And I think that's the other thing too. As a leader, if you're not consistent, people don't want to lead you. If you can be or lead, follow you. If you are consistent, right, with what you do and how you act, people feel comfortable in that understanding that you have your head on your shoulders and you're going to go through. And again, have compassion, right? And then, change is something that takes time, and you have to be able to understand that and take it in and really plan for that change. Because realistically, life can change on a dime, right? We've heard this term. I mean, things happen, right? Accidents occur. uh New things are brought into the issue. You go to the doctor and you find out that you have cancer or something like that. That could really change your attitude and your outlook on life. But if you fight that change, it's worse, right? So you have to really be able to go with it. There's times when you have to grieve for sure, but you have to work through that as well. And you have to challenge your past through that fear, right? And I think sometimes that change will stop us from moving forward because we fear what's beyond. And I think that's the other thing with high EQ. You understand that things happen, you work through them, and you don't fear that change, right? Because without change, we don't grow. And that's at the end of the day, that's what we want to do, is we want to grow as a leader. So focus and consistent effort, we can do better, and managing our thoughts and our emotions and our actions. And when we develop the discipline to continue towards mastery, right? And we'll always be better. And remember, just work on yourself and work to be a better self. Thank you for being with us today. And visit Titan HST for all your communication needs. And remember to follow us on your favorite podcast player, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and join us. And until next week, stay safe and stay hydrated.